my favourite thing about the hotel was they had signs everywhere that said, no reserver. Don't reserve your you can't reserve your sunbeds. I, meanwhile, had swanned off with this random family, and sort of like Ginger Rogers in a film, was sat coquettishly at a bar with a Coca-Cola at this point, just hearing the ocean, Cake by the Ocean. We did have Cake by the Ocean, actually. It was all inclusive. Just I was convinced if I went to New York, I would find my people and I'd work everything out. I must tell you about this butt I saw in San Francisco. I wanted to go to San Francisco and I found it so thrilling. I had really struggled to come out, and I found it very vulnerable, and I'd been very frightened of coming out as a teenager when I was at school. I think at that time I was too ashamed to go, I haven't got any friends, will you be my friend? Whereas actually that's the most confident thing you can do. We stayed in An Hotel, and I always say An Hotel in the old school grammar, whoever An Hotel is.
Welcome, Tom Allen, to the Travel Diaries. It is amazing to see you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you very much for this. I just love the idea of going on holiday from an armchair.
Armchair travel, that's what we are all about. But hey, didn't you just get back from Hostel? Like IRL?
Well, bless you for knowing that, actually. Yeah, I just got back we had 4 nights in Gran Canaria. We
Very
booked it
nice.
at the last minute. And I'd always heard about it as a sort of gay resort, because there's...
Oh, is it?
Well, it's got a big kind of gay following, Gran Canaria.
Yeah.
But I'd never been. Anyway, it looked like it was sunny there, and we were staying outside of the main town, and so it was great. But I made my boyfriend go in to Maspalomas to go to the Yumbo Centre, which is where this is kind of the famous gay bit. Which
the Yumbo Centre.
The Yumbo, Yumbo, I think is how it's spelled.
Yeah.
We got there before it got dark, and my partner was slightly horrified that I brought him to this place, which is essentially a multi-storey car park, kind of chock full of gay bars and drag bars. And I think he was like, what is this? Why do people go on about this? And then we went and had dinner, and then we came back having had a couple of glasses of vino tinto, and suddenly everybody was out and about, and it was the best atmosphere. It was so great. Fiesta,
Yeah.
exactly.
Lovely.
Fiesta. We went to the sort of drag bars there, which were just so silly and fun, and we just had a lovely time. It was just a nice interlude. I don't know I think if you stayed nearer to it, you might go every night because it's kind of the thing to do. We stayed a bit out, so we kind of dipped our toes in, enjoyed it, and then went back to resting.
Nice. So then were you just recharging for the rest?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. We went all inclusive.
Nice.
We stayed in Amelia Hotel. I don't know if you do brands on this podcast.
I have stayed once in Amelia Hotel.
Oh, yes.
A really nice one, actually,
Yes.
that I recommend, called Villa LeBlanc in Menorca.
Oh, I'm looking at going to Menorca. Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful pool, rooftop pool, adults only bit.
Right.
Yeah, recommend.
They do that very well. And do you know what was my
Yes.
favourite thing? I don't want to start our chat on something so contentious, but my favourite thing about the hotel was they had signs everywhere that said, no reserver. Don't
Very good.
reserve your you can't reserve your sunbeds. So if you left a towel there for too long, they would clear
Just
it up.
whip it up.
And they said personal belongings will be given to lost property, and I thought it was fabulous.
Yes. I think that is a policy that should be taken.
Everywhere in the world.
Everywhere.
We just need to all sign up to it, because otherwise, who wants to get stressed out and run down before the breakfast buffet's even opened?
No.
To claim, I know it sounds like something from a 1980s sitcom, but like to claim your
claim your bed.
sunbed.
I know.
And I just think we should all just relax. And I felt put everybody on the same page, as in like, yeah, we're all chilled out about it. There'll be enough beds.
Yeah.
There'll be.
I mean, that's the ideal situation.
Sure.
That there's just enough beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well, some people don't like to stay all day, but they'll reserve a bed all day. And I think just be on the bed when you need to be on the bed, and then you have your moment there, and then you leave and do something else. Or...
Exactly. It's just pure holiday manners.
Yes, exactly.
Which is something we all need to
just
take
a little
heed
bit
of.
A little bit of consideration of other people. Oh gosh, I'm sounding so old. But but it didn't get taken. Like, I should point out, it wasn't like you go in the sea and you come back and the bed had been cleared and all your things. It was, you were allowed a bit of grace. But
And you like the hotel?
loved the hotel.
Yeah.
We had most of the rooms face out over the sea, and we slept with the door open, and you could hear the waves. And I just
Nice.
love listening to the waves.
Yeah, so calming.
I just love it. And I don't.
It's your own white noise machine.
It really is, yes. Just hearing the ocean, Cake by the Ocean. We did have Cake by the Ocean, actually. It was all inclusive. Why not? Just loved that sort of serenity that it brings. I just love the sounds of nature. I just find, as I've gotten older, I just find them very soothing.
Yeah. I wish we could hear the sound of the River Thames, which we are right next to.
Lapping its
Yeah, kind of
muddied
rippling.
waters, lapping against these Victorian battlements that we're standing in.
Sewage flowing past.
Absolutely, so soothing. I just find it's the only way I can relax.
We're going to go on a journey today, Tom.
Oh, great.
Through the 7 chapters of your life's travel diaries.
Yes.
And we start at the very beginning, which is chapter 1, your earliest childhood travel memory.
Well, I was a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 1983. Mm-hmm. And my most prominent childhood memory was actually in Gran Canaria.
No way. Full circle moment.
Full circle. We've already completed a full circle moment and we've only just begun.
Cut.
Like Karen Carpenter sang, we've only just begun. But I think the most prominent one was we went to Gran Canaria and I was trying to find it on the recent trip. We stayed in an hotel, and I always say an hotel in the old school grammar.
Yes, it's very proper. I literally have never said "an" before an H.
It is kind of slightly cumbersome these days, but I will sometimes allow myself an hotel, whoever an hotel is. And I must have been 5. I think I was 5, yeah, because my brother had just been born, and he was in a pushchair, and you walked along the top there, and then to go to the beach, you went down a lot of stairs. Mm-hmm. And I remember we went there. My dad said, probably trying to wear me out, said, "You go down this set of steps, and we'll go down this set of steps, and we'll meet at the bottom. That'll be a little adventure for you." I started walking down the steps, but they were covered with bushes and brambles, and I started to walk down on my own, and I got a bit scared and walked back up, and then couldn't. Obviously, my parents by that point had gone down their route. And the bells are tolling in the background for this ominous story. And then I tried to follow them, and then there were bushes over the top of their path, and I got scared. And so I ran back up, and I didn't like to go down their one. I tried to make myself go down my original path. Yeah. Felt very scared. I had to run back up again. Then just panicked and stayed at the top of the steps in a terrible state. And what seemed like a long time passed. And then I eventually found, and I had a sort of spidey sense as a child, that I knew to ask for help, but only to ask, I knew that I should ask a family who seemed like they were
not
kind.
Murderers.
And not murderers. Yeah. I was very good on that. Yeah. And that would potentially look after me.
Yeah.
And I remembered the name of the hotel because I was very good at remembering the names of the hotels. I can't remember it now, though. And I said, "Excuse me," and I feel like they might have been Greek or Danish. I can't remember which. But they... I said, "Excuse me, I've lost my parents, but I know I'm staying at whatever this hotel was." And they kindly walked me back to the hotel. Meanwhile, my parents have gotten to the bottom of the steps because it needed 2 people to help to lift the pushchair down the steps. They'd gotten to the bottom, and I hadn't appeared out of my side of the steps. And they'd gone, and my dad had obviously run back up to look for me, couldn't find me.
God.
Had gone down the other ones to look for me, couldn't find me. My mum then starts having this huge panic, starts screaming, and the waiters there are going, "It's fine, don't worry. Don't worry, we everybody here loves children, we'd always look after a child." I, meanwhile, had swanned off with this random family, and sort of like Ginger Rogers in a film, was sat coquettishly at a bar with a Coca-Cola at this point. From a glass bottle with a straw, and we're just waiting for them. But obviously they were having the most enormous nightmare. And the last place they went to look was to approach the hotel because they thought, why would our 5-year-old be back at the hotel? Why would the hotel know anything? Anyway, I think a local cafe had to phone the hotel, who said, "Yes, he's fine. He's here at the bar."
Oh my God, what a drama.
Sorry, that wasn't the sort of restful start to the journey, was it?
No, that's amazing. I'm on the edge of my seat. It's gripping everybody.
Imagine if the ending had been, and then I was just brought up by this
Danish
family.
/ Greek family.
I never saw my parents again, and that's how I began.
Were you really thoroughly told off?
No,
you weren't.
No, they were just relieved to have
They were
me.
relieved.
It had been a sort of disaster holiday, I think, because it had rained a lot.
It's always so gutting, isn't it?
So
when you
gutting.
make that schlep over there.
Oh, and Gran Canaria doesn't usually have that much rain.
No.
So it was kind of like the people in the hotel were really sad for us.
It's one of those holidays where they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, we have 300 days of sunshine a year. This is so unfortunate.
This is so rare.
This is so rare." And what you meant to say, like,
"Oh, good.
Great.
Yeah, well, good for you. I hope you enjoy them."
Yeah.
And they'd given us, I think because it had rained so much, and the sort of alfresco breakfast buffet arrangement had fallen in from the like there's like a sort of straw roof or something there to make it kind of holiday and fun, but it had fallen in from all the rain, so they offered us dinner in the formal restaurant they had in the hotel. And my mum was very proud because we sat in the formal restaurant and a lady came over and said, "Your children are very well behaved," which
the ultimate compliment.
The ultimate compliment, of course, and something that I've always striven for.
So what kind of holiday family were the Allens, would you say?
Well, fans of a package holiday.
Fans of a package holiday, yeah.
My parents, my mum in particular, would have the suitcases, which were those flat suitcases that people used to have, would be open in their bedroom for months.
What do you mean by flat suitcases?
Sorry, now everyone has the boxy ones on 4 wheels.
Yeah.
This was before wheels were put on suitcases.
Right.
If that makes sense. I know to your younger listeners, they won't know what I'm talking about.
I can think of almost like duffel bags, that look like kind of more like bowling bag shape, like long ones. But
they were just your classic suitcase, I suppose, is what I'm describing.
Without-
Not Carrie's War style suit. Not those ones. I would have loved that sort of Paddington Bear.
And not like a big trunk.
Not a big trunk, which again I would have absolutely loved, like
would have
Joan
been very
Collins
glad,
getting
yeah.
on board Concorde. Even at the age of 5, I would have loved that. Instead, they were just your classic suitcases, which had a handle and were kind of usually made of a canvas material. I think ours were a kind of a khaki green with a nylon stripe down the middle. Mm-hmm. They had a handle, and underneath the handle was a sort of buckle that went over. That was a double fastening on the seat on the suitcase, and we'd have 2 of those and a small one. My dad would have to when we parked at the airport. Dad would have to go and get a trolley because suitcases hadn't realised that they could make friends with wheels. You have to get a trolley, stack them on the trolley.
Yeah.
And then my dad would have his camera bag, which was kind of camp, actually. It's a red leather handbag, actually. But it was a camera bag, which had the passports in, and he would take his camera with him as well for the holiday. But my parents would have been packing the bags for maybe what seemed like weeks beforehand.
A big build-up.
The lid of them would be propped up against the radiator in their room for weeks. Don't touch that! Don't touch! Very organised.
Very neat.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Very organised. And, it was kind of a nice era of travel, I think, when tourism was really sort of taking hold. That sounds terrible, actually, doesn't it? But we were grateful to go on holiday. It was mainly to somewhere in Spain.
Right.
Particularly Javea near Alicante.
Mm-hmm.
Was a place we went to lots of times. We felt we were very aware of being visitors in Spain. So we weren't obnoxious Brits abroad. We were I like to think, we would say gracias, por favor, and have a phrase book on the table and enjoy the menu del dia, which seemed to be about 100 pesetas, which I think was about £10.
Menu del dia.
Menu del dia.
Love that.
Menu of the day.
Yeah.
Which always ended in a creme caramel. Or flan. Flan, which is not a creme caramel. Well, it is a creme caramel, basically.
It's a wobbly dessert.
A wobbly custard dessert, which I loved. And bread with aioli in Javea, which was a very chic place to go, I have to tell you.
What did it look like? What was it?
Javea. Oh, it was wonderful. The Parador Hotel sat on the peninsula by the sandy beach. They'd created a man-made sandy beach on one side and a pebble beach on the other. And we would stay in a selection of flats that were called Pueblo Blanco, because my dad's friend's dad had been a builder, and he'd built these flats, and they'd kept one of them.
Oh, nice.
So we
Good
stayed
contact
there.
to have.
Great contact to have. And if you've been on a Spanish holiday, the tiles, the number of the building was on a tile that had blue and yellow paint on it, very Spanish. And you could buy ashtrays that were similarly painted. And they were those doors, those panelled doors. You don't see them as much in Spain, which have like lots of rectangular panels on them. If anybody's been to Spain, they might remember those.
These rectangular panels.
Rectangular panels on them. You remember when you go on holiday as a
love the
kid?
details, though. It's what being able to visualize it, like something from such a long time ago.
And the shiny pavements on the promenade to the back of the beach, where dignified Spanish couples would go for their evening promenade.
So nice.
So all those details that I think as a kid, because it's such a break in your usual routine, and it's hopefully time you spend with your parents, which is outside of their normal routine. That quality time is so formative I think it's such an important thing.
Well, outside of Suburbia,
Yes.
which leads us beautifully to your new book,
Oh, bless you for saying.
which is set in Suburbia. Can you tell us all about it?
With pleasure. Yes, I've been inspired by Suburbia. I think for a time I sort of grew to be so embarrassed by how sad it is living in Bromley. Oh, it's so boring. I want to live in London, the cool people, cool clubs. And I've come to realise that was not ever going to be me. And that actually I like the mundanity of Suburbia. Because I think it's a place where most people live at some point in their life. And people tend to go there to live a quieter life. Like they like the idea of maybe it's somewhere where they bring up a family. And I was lucky enough to be brought up in a really nice community of people. And it was I reflect on it, it was a really diverse community of people from all over the world, people from all different backgrounds, but who wanted to live a happy life and were neighbours to one another and looked out for one another, and they would have neighbourhood parties and things like that, and
A community. Yeah.
And I was inspired to write about that in my novel because I think I see so much. We're so told that we're so polarised, we're so discordant, everybody's angry with each other, and you see it so much on screens and online and things, and everybody's sort of looking over their shoulder and feeling like they're not enough. Whereas Suburbia, with its boringness, actually, I realised, is a place where people get along and they are enough and they are respected and regarded, and they might wind each other up sometimes, but fundamentally they get along together because they want to live in harmony. And so I wanted to write about how that is the case. And with people who've read it so far, they say they really connect with that. And they might have grown up in different sorts of communities like it, but I like to think it's a celebration of that.
Yeah, 100%. And what would you, if you were summing it up in, like a sales spiel, what would you say?
I would say it's about 4 houses in Suburbia with 4 very different families in each that face onto a park, and they realise that...
And a big tree?
And a big oak tree.
Yeah.
And they realise that their love for this tree and this bit of nature brings them together and makes them realise they're more connected than they ever realised. There are secrets that they never realised would be told. ...
Yeah.
I wanted to write about how drama is often in the most quiet places. It's not about murder. There's no murders. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people write about murders and murder mysteries. I do think, if a murder happens in a place, it's a huge thing to happen, terrible thing to happen.
Totally, yeah.
But it's sort of written about in books. They're like, yes, and then someone got murdered, and then everybody went to the party afterwards. Like, if you discovered a dead body, every day for the rest of your life, you would think about that dead body. You would think about...
You're so right.
I find
the same actually with true crime podcasts.
Oh.
I'm like, I personally... That's not what I want to listen to before going to
bed. No, but people find them very soothing, don't
so
they?
Popular.
Strangely, I guess it's sort of about understanding the terror that's out there. But yeah. So I wanted to write about people's lives and how they're in their perhaps mundane exchanges that actually a lot of drama is revealed.
And did you always have a book in you? Because to write a novel is a huge thing. I mean, you'd written your 2 memoirs,
yes.
and so was this something on your professional bucket list?
Well, I've always enjoyed observing people and observing the quirks and the peculiarities of life, and so I found that a novel was something that I found very freeing. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done, writing it.
Really,
It was very intense because you love the people and you love the characters you've created and you feel protective of them. But I felt very much creatively so free because you can go on whatever journey you like and you create somebody, and you can... I've written about an old lady called Miranda who's in her 80s, and I wanted to represent how older people are much more exciting than they're ever given credit for. Mm-hmm. And so I do have in it moments where she encounters a drug dealer, and moments where she sort of reveals her past, which is much more glamorous and exciting than at first it seems. And so I liked that idea of being able to give life to the people I'd met growing up in a way that they maybe didn't have. I was inspired by people I grew up around.
You were inspired by people in your... And have you told them, there's a bit of you in Miranda, there's a bit of you in...
I'd have to tell them through a séance. But I hope I've done them justice since they've left us. I found them more and more interesting as I learned more about them. And I wanted the novel to be about that kind of idea that people could be wildly more exciting than they ever given credit for.
And a couple of my listeners wanted to ask, are you going to be voicing, or have you already voiced an audio?
Yes, I have done it.
Yeah.
I've recorded it, which is a nice experience. It feels like you're very privileged to be in people's ears, as you said, when they go to bed, or they take you with them into all manner of situations. And so, I like storytelling. I've always enjoyed storytellers.
Yeah.
Someone who's a good storyteller, I think it's a great thing to be able to kind of create a world and a moment and stuff.
Totally.
I've always loved that. And that was a thing in my family, sort of associated family, as it were. People we knew, family friends, would be great storytellers and would have great richness to the details. And I just still, even now, I love that. So I thought it was important for me to read the novel. It's quite an odd experience, though, because you sit in a booth with a radio producer or audio producer, and you don't really see them because they have all their screens in front of them. Mm-hmm. And then you don't really hear from them. You sort of go into your own little world. It's only when you trip up over a word and they go, "You go back on that, please."
So you get lost in it. Lost in it, yeah.
Yeah, quite meditative, really.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Very soothing, yeah.
Oh, I look forward to both reading and
listening. Well, thank you for that.
And we'll move on to chapter 2 of your travel diaries, Tom. And that's the first place that you fell in love with. Where captured your heart first, would you say?
I would say it was when I was 22. And I'd never been somebody to go on holiday with my mates. Like, I never was like the in-betweeners going to...
Yeah, like Magaluf
or something. Yeah. I always knew that wasn't for me because I was quite a precocious young person. No, I don't think I'd like to go anywhere loud like that, thank you. I went to a very comprehensive school. Where people are like, come on, we're going to go Zante. We're going to, what was that one in Rhodes? Ayia, like places like that. I didn't want to go. It looked a bit too loud for me.
I was a bit the same.
There are a lot of us out there, I think,
yeah.
but we just didn't know each other because we were quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
But the idea of going to like one of those places, like the lads are out in San Antonio, all those documentaries that used to exist.
I think I just already knew that wasn't my vibe.
Yes.
Yeah, like...
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But when I started in stand-up, I saved up enough money because I'd always wanted to go to San Francisco.
Oh.
And lots of reasons. I'd always wanted to go to have... I love the idea of breakfast in America, not just the Supertramp album, but the idea of having an American breakfast. And my friend Charlie was traveling. She's a very intrepid traveller. And she was going to be in America at that time. And we'd both read... the series of books called Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard of.
I haven't read them.
I really recommend them. They are they were written in the 1970s about a group of young people. It's kind of a very queer story in a lot of ways, but it's about just a group of young people who escape their backgrounds and kind of come to San Francisco to live a kind of freer life. And it's so uplifting and positive, and it was written for the San Francisco Chronicle, I think. So it was written a bit like Dickens did with the Pickwick Papers. It was written as a serialized story. Yeah. So all the chapters are short and are always like page turners. And Page Turner, whoever she is. And then I wanted to go to San Francisco, and I found it so thrilling. I travelled there on my own and got off the plane, and I remember I had really struggled to come out, and I'd found it very vulnerable, and I'd been very frightened of coming out as a teenager when I was at school. And it was reading the books represented a story of positivity, and going to the place where they were set felt extra special. I remember getting on the BART, the Bay Area Regional Transportation, from the airport and being like, what is this? Where am I? I had my red suitcase that my mum actually had won in a raffle at the golf club. And I had the red suitcase. I got on the BART, and this guy sat opposite me who was quite a lot older than me. And it was the first time he sort of raised an eyebrow at me and sort of flirted with his eyes. And that had never happened to me before. And I was so felt so kind of alive. I was like, I'm a somebody, I can exist. I was like, he's a grown up, and he's big. Probably didn't care, probably was looking out the window. But probably looking at somebody else.
Had something in his eye.
Maybe had something in his eye. Very brief encounter. My favourite film. But it was that was a place that we went. My friend Charlie and I, we went to a bar in the Castro and we met people, and they invited us around for dinner. And it just felt like I belonged somewhere. And I know that sounds very portentous, but I just felt like, oh, this place. And we went to a place called Dottie's for breakfast or brunch, I think it was. And we had pancakes with bacon on it, all that
Was
kind
that
of...
the American breakfast
that
you
was,
had in your head?
Yeah.
A big stack of pancakes.
With savoury things
With
and maple syrup.
Maple syrup and bacon on the top.
And then a fruit cup. Like a little...
little fruit cup.
Fruit cup.
The thing that's also so weird about American stacks of pancakes is that not only are they unbelievably high when you think about it, because if I have a pancake at home, I'll have like two pancakes.
Yeah, two. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, two max. They put the syrup on, but they also put butter.
Yes.
Like big chunks of butter on the top as well to melt. God, no wonder.
Lovely. And then they call them home fries. Those cubes of fried potato. Oh, it's so delicious.
It is very herby.
They love a herby.
Herby.
Herby. They would say herby, yeah. An herby taste. And herby, whoever she is. And then, it was one of those times, and now I remember everything about it, how we loved the sound of, ambulances and fire trucks in America have a certain siren, which is honk, honk, woo! And we just kept honk, honk, woo! Doing impressions of it. Silly things that you do when you're young and you think you're very funny. And I remember, I went into French Connection and bought some trendy jeans. They were quite skinny jeans, which, let me tell you, in 2006 was quite new. And just one of those moments when I just felt so alive.
That's so lovely. What a wonderful memory to reflect on.
It was. We stayed in a youth hostel. All the youth hostels were in a place called the Tenderloin, which we were like, be careful in the Tenderloin. It's very, it's an area where, it's not very salubrious. But actually, I didn't feel anything other than excited. Everybody.
So many innuendos for the Tenderloin.
I mean, for sure. And we stayed in a youth hostel, and in a shared room. And on the first day, we slept that first night, and then on the first morning. We woke up and a man in the opposite bunk to us. We couldn't see anything except for his bare bum. His bum was sticking out. He'd obviously slept with no clothes on. We went, look. Oh yeah, my friend was across. I was like, look, somebody's naked in the bed. And you were like, oh, how exciting! This is just like it would be in a book or something. He he'd obviously worked out a lot because his glutes were more toned than his face. Maybe that's very unkind. But he looked younger. he was a lot older. But,
younger in the butt.
Yeah, young. He had a real young butt. But, I'm sure it was very nice.
I love how that's a memory that's still stuck in your head.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, you were about to move on to another thing. I was like, I must tell you about this butt I saw in San Francisco. Things that stay in the mind.
That beautifully segues on to chapter 3, which is the place where you learnt the most about yourself.
Well, I mean, I did do quite a lot of solo travelling at various points. Yeah, I sort of thought, I don't know who I can ask, and if I ask someone, then I'll have to do what they want to do, and I might not want to do that.
Yeah.
I think the place I learned the most was going on a trip to America when I was, not San Francisco, but when I was 18, and I was desperate to go to America. Because I was convinced if I went to New York, I would find my people and I would work everything out. But my parents were too scared to let me go to New York on my own. So I went to stay in with an aunt, my dad's aunt, in a place called Cherry Hills, which is just outside Philadelphia, on the New Jersey side of Philadelphia. So that was my first experience of America, was going to Philadelphia Airport.
What was your impression of that?
Like nice, like everything does look bigger, and you do have that kind of like, wow, we're in America, but you're in a kind of, it was a suburban America, so it was kind of not a million miles where I'd grown up.
Suburbia.
Then I got the Greyhound bus because I couldn't afford to fly there, and I didn't know I couldn't afford to get the train. Everyone's like, get the bus, you just get the bus.
Get the Greyhound. It's iconic, isn't it?
So iconic. And I thought, we'll go over the bridge, I'll see the city of New York, Manhattan, it'll be great. Of course, you don't go that way, because to go to the 41st Street, is it? What do they call it? Port Authority. Bus station. You go under a tunnel, and before you get in the tunnel, it was raining, so you didn't see any of the, I didn't see any of the skyscrapers at all. So I just came out of a tunnel and suddenly it was on
the
41st
Lincoln
Street.
Tunnel.
The Lincoln Tunnel, I think
Yeah.
it must be.
Yeah.
And got off at 41st Street, Port Authority, and they play classical music to try and calm everyone down. But it was so stressful. And then I checked into a hotel called the Gershwin Hotel, which was actually very chic. Very chic. It had a sort of 1920s, 1930s. It was all very red and then black and white.
Oh, jazzy.
Jazzy.
Yeah.
But I was staying on my own because I was like, I want to be my own person. I'm going to find myself here. But I mean, I was just very lonely. I didn't meet anybody. The Gershwin Hotel was kind of a youth hostel. You could do shared rooms. I was like, no, I want to be on my own. And I was so scared. And I just was walking around Manhattan all on my own, not feeling anything other than like, well, I've gone to see this thing. I've seen the Empire State Building. What do you do with that? You take a picture. That's it.
Yeah.
And I was like, but then it was around about the time I was like, I think I've got to come out. I think I've got to tell people I'm gay. I was trying to bury it. And I took myself to a gay bar for the first time. And I was so scared. And I walked, and of course, like they didn't ask for ID at that point because they're normally quite strict and you have to be over 21. So I managed to, they obviously were being lax. I can't remember where it was, but I remember walking in and I walked straight into a chair, into a bar stool and felt so self-conscious and just sat at the bar on my own and had a drink and then left. I was like, what am I doing? But I suppose it taught me a lot about myself.
It's very brave to go on your own at 18 to the East Coast and like not really have a plan. And
I suppose so.
I think it is.
It taught me that
especially in those days when you didn't have a mobile that you could just like have all, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't walk
Sorry, I
around
don't
on
mean to
Instagram.
talk about it as though it's like a million
years
years ago.
I just
in
sent
those
a telegram
days.
home. I would have liked that. No, yeah, you're right though. There wasn't that sense of like, oh, I'm just doing a video diary for myself. So
Yeah.
But what it taught me was that I needed a purpose in everything I do.
Right.
Because to be rudderless like that and just to turn up and be like, oh, I'll find something. It taught me that I needed a purpose. I'd like to say it taught me to be kinder to myself, but actually it didn't. It was the most time I spent with my own thoughts. And I realised how spiteful they can be. I think spending time on your own, you can kind of spiral quite quickly into a very negative place. And I was very angry with myself for not being able to work out what I was doing, or not being like other people, or not being confident like other people I assumed would be.
Yeah.
And that sort of barrage like that. So I learned, I suppose, that I had to have a purpose when I went to somewhere, and I had to have a friend when I went to somewhere. And if I was feeling lonely, it was okay to acknowledge that. I think at that time I was like too ashamed to go, I haven't got any friends, will you be my friend? Whereas actually that's the most confident thing you can do.
Totally, yeah. It's so, but interesting then that you found your people on the West Coast.
Yes,
so it's, you know.
I suppose that was true, and that felt like when I'd been to New York and that East Coast adventure,
It didn't put you off.
It didn't put me off. I was determined there was something out there.
Yeah.
But at that point, I felt very negative about myself, and I suppose this trip to San Francisco represented something where I was feeling a lot more kind of positive about life and like open. You know, those times in your life, I think holidays
And
do
free.
it. And free.
Yeah.
Where it feels like is it the rafters, or like a loft, like a bird loft would have like slats that you'd open. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you feel like open everything. You're just looking at the sky and everything's amazing.
Yeah.
But there are other times when it's shut and you're like, no.
It's like blue sky thinking, isn't it? Where they say
Yes.
like there's beyond the clouds, there's always blue sky.
Oh, is that where that comes from?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that like your negative thoughts can be the clouds that are passing by, but above it, there's always blue sky.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, it's quite a nice analogy, isn't it?
Whenever the clouds part, and I see that blue sky, I'm always like, oh, it's going to stay like this forever. But of course, it's like a sunny day, isn't it? You think it'll... Like James Taylor sang, I've seen sunny days I thought would never end.
Yeah.
And I listened to James Taylor actually on the way back from Philadelphia.
No way.
Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
I love an airplane trip for listening to albums.
And nowadays, podcasts.
Of course, podcasts are available. But
Podcasts
listening to
are-
something audio from beginning to end.
Yeah, you have that time, don't you? It's so much less stimulation.
I
Yeah.
love air travel for that.
Do you like flying?
Absolutely adore it.
I wish
Don't
I
like the
did.
airport.
Yeah.
Are you scared of flying?
I'm not scared of it, but I definitely don't enjoy it. I actually kind of have a weird kind of motion sickness whereby when the plane banks, like when it does that kind of
Yes.
thing, I get this like plummeting feeling.
Oh, bless you.
So I spend the whole time staring out the window, which is slightly tedious.
I bet you're a nightmare
And quite
on it.
tricky as a travel journalist.
Yes, I bet.
It's a bit of an occupational hazard, I have to say. Like everyone's like, why do you still do this? And I'm like, because you get amazing opportunities, and you get to see the world. You've just got to go and bear it. I say it's like childbirth. Once you've done it, you do it again, and you forget, and do it again.
I was thinking it's a bit like I have a fear of being judged by other people, and yet I do for a job.
Yeah, you're on the stage. Yeah, exactly. It's the exact same thing.
We're all the same. Gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, then, so getting into your background and into how you had this big break in comedy. I mean, like you said, I read that you were quite a self-conscious teenager, and so it is amazing then that you then found yourself on the stage and at a young age winning all these awards in Edinburgh.
Well, yes, I think I got some success early on because I was a bit quirky, and then when I tried to take that out into the sort of mainstream of clubs, people were not into me talking about my mum's hostess trolley at length. Comedy clubs really demand that you snatch attention and hold the audience and have something funny to say and another funny thing to say and keep it moving. But I learnt that the hard way. It took me about 13 years then, starting out and winning a couple of awards, which was great, but also meant that it made it harder because people were like, well, you've won all these awards, you're supposed to be good.
Yeah, and I guess it's like that huge, it's like winning a gold medal on your first Olympics.
Yes, very similar.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 12 or 13 years of doing gigs and just feeling like I was just sort of the machinery just kept jamming. Like the blue sky had disappeared and the rafters had shut really at that point. And I just was trying to be protective of myself and trying to learn about myself and feeling quite vulnerable and scared really going to those comedy clubs for those 12 years and just praying every time I went in like, maybe this time they'll like me. And sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. But doing that for a long time, it was very odd.
So what do you consider was like your big break?
I don't think I had one really. I think I'm somebody who I have to convince people like, oh, please give me a job. And so I think it's when I've done things for a long time. So I would say going on Cats Does Countdown introduced me to some people, but then doing a Bake Off an Extra Slice was another thing.
Speaking of which, are you doing next year? This year?
Well, you'll have to ask Channel 4 about that. So I wouldn't. I don't.
I wanted to ask you about Nigella.
Oh,
Can I?
mean, I don't have any knowledge of her or experience of her.
Yes. Well, I mean, she's the new judge.
She's the new judge. Yes. I'm sure she'll be brilliant.
Are you excited about
Yes,
her
she'll
joining?
be fantastic and funny, and that innuendo that she does will be such a nice...
I think it's an amazing cast.
Yes, but perfect. And I think she'll stand up to Paul in a funny way.
Yeah.
It'll be great fun.
I'm quite excited to see how that all pans out. Paul and Prue both being on the podcast. Both fantastic. Prue is a very intrepid traveller.
Yes, she is.
She just got back from like Kyrgyzstan.
Yes,
Uzbekistan.
She's somebody who I think is such a great role model because, well, she doesn't fit the stereotype of somebody of her age, frankly. I mean, I know that might sound patronising. She might tell me off for that. Yeah. But she really doesn't let anything stop her, and I think we should all be more like Prue.
Well, let's pause it and move on to chapter 4, which is the big one, Tom, your all-time favourite destination.
I will say the favourite place I went to was Japan.
Oh.
Do a lot of people say that? I'm trying to think.
Yes, they do. Well, actually more top of bucket list, I would say, actually, because it's far.
Well, I'm going to say this now. I went in 2012 and I went before everybody else went.
Absolutely.
I mean, bold claim from me.
Yeah,
before
you were a tastemaker.
I like to think of myself as, zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And
where did you go?
Flew into Tokyo, got the Japan Rail Pass and went on the Shinkansen to Kyoto. No, sorry. Kyoto, yes, first. Osaka, Hiroshima, Nara, and then back to Tokyo.
Amazing.
And I went on my own.
Wow.
And
it's such an alien experience, isn't it, going into Japan?
Well, I felt very self-conscious there.
Yeah.
And in 2012, I went during the London Olympics because everyone had moaned. If you can remember, early 2012, everyone was moaning so much about the London Olympics. Oh, it's going to be terrible. Oh, they said not to go into London if you don't need to. Oh, you can't use the tube apparently. Oh, it's costing so much money.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I want to get out then if everyone's going to be so miserable about it.
Yeah.
And so went to Japan, went to Tokyo, watched the opening ceremony, was absolutely blown away, and all I heard about was how everybody absolutely loved it. The public is very changeable like that, aren't they?
Yes, they absolutely are.
Changed on a ninepence? Is that a
Sixpence?
Sure. Inflation. But I was in Japan while the rest of the world was in London, and it was an unusual time to go. I went in August because it was cheaper to go then, and I'd always heard it was expensive. I'd heard a few people talk about it, and I went there, and I'd enjoyed David Sedaris writing about it. I think it was his book, Now You Are Engulfed in Flames. And I went there, and so I went on my own and got off the plane. It was more hot than I had ever been, because it's humid.
Yeah.
In the middle of August, and had to try and find my way to this youth hostel I was staying in, which I changed at the last minute because it suggested this place had single rooms, which I could go to. It did not have single rooms. I'd misunderstood. It had a bed in basically a cupboard that was a single cupboard up on a...
one of the capsule...
Well, it wasn't quite a capsule because it had a side opening. So it was a bit like a sort of sideboard. So it was like sleeping in a sideboard. And I think I was getting a little bit ill from the jet lag and the heat and the blasts of cold. And it was quite overwhelming. Taking shoes off, of course, is a big thing. And there was something tremendous about it, but I, again, had foolishly gone on my own to the most... I think I was just desperate to be on my own. I don't know why I was so keen, because when I was on my own, I was so miserable.
Also interesting because from my kind of reading about that I did before the episode today, you're quite... I don't want to make assumptions, but quite close to your family and
yes.
like some kind of... You're very... Not codependent is the right
No,
word.
I am.
Oh, are you?
That's complete. Yeah, completely
as
right.
in with the people that are close to you. So it's interesting that you took these kind of bold adventures that were quite against what made you feel comfortable.
I think it might have been my soul railing against the codependency and trying to be on my own and to prove to myself I was enough on my own, which
is very brave. I have to say, I really think that's very admirable.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think I was very naive again. I just kept punishing myself. But I think codependency, I think, is the right thing to bring up, really, because I think I realised I have a tendency to base my esteem on opinions of other people. And I think these solo trips were me trying to go, I will stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need anybody else. And it backfired because I realised I really did, because all that happened was these negative thoughts would come in. And I'd write a diary, but the diary would just be me kind of like, you stupid idiot, why did you come here on your own? And it's very punishing. But I did find that I had lots of fun moments in Japan. And I did meet people, and I remember meeting a Canadian family when we went to the fish market in Tokyo. And I remember meeting a guy just randomly, actually, in Osaka. And he made me go cycling with him, which I was not in the mood for because it was too hot. We ended up cycling to the top to go to this castle there. But what I found with it all was it was inspiring because it was so phenomenally different to anywhere I'd been to before. Every design, every way of being, obviously the language, and also the way the language was written, was so incredibly different. So everything, it took that extra bit of time. And at times I would be quite frustrated that it would take me like half an hour to get out of a subway station. But at the same time, there were these flashes of extreme loveliness where somebody would say, are you lost? Can I help you? Which I don't think would happen in London very often.
Yeah.
But in Tokyo, people would say, can I help you? You seem lost or you seem confused. And I think they would be so
They're very
polite.
hospitable.
So hospitable.
Yeah.
And so wonderful.
And were you to go back there now, where in Japan would you want to return to?
Well, I would love to go to Kyoto. I mean, I went to Kyoto on my own, and I met somebody in the youth hostel there, and we went for a walk, and we were looking for this theatre. We couldn't find this theatre that we'd seen in the guidebook. You needed a guidebook then. You didn't have Google Maps. You didn't have things to look up online. We couldn't find this theatre, kept walking around. We saw this building that was really lit up, and we walked into it, walking around. It was very beautiful, traditional Japanese building. And then this lady came out, and she said, what are you doing? This is my house. And we were wearing our shoes. It was awful. But we had a lovely time. But I had a lovely time in Kyoto. It's so stunning there.
Is it very serene?
Yes, to an extent, but also very buzzy and busy.
The temples part, I guess, is serene. But I always think that Kyoto it shocks me that it's also actually a massive city.
It's huge, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it has the old bits. Has the new bits. I felt guilty that I started to get tired of looking at temples.
Temples, yeah.
Is that okay to say?
Yeah, you say whatever.
But it
you
is like coming to England and going around to every village
want.
church,
Every church. Yeah.
which, are often very beautiful.
When you're touring, do you go and see the local churches?
Not that often.
No.
So I think it was surprising that I was expecting to get this sort of spiritual experience from going to them in Japan. But I did find it extraordinary, and I really missed it when I left, and I think it affected me in more ways than I had realised at the time. And I thought it was, I thought it was really so profound, and the way that, again, I suppose there is a culture of being aware of other people and being mindful of other people, which is pronounced on signs and things, of like no loud music, and I saw a sign that said, "Please don't come in," across a part of a temple. But I thought it was kind of wonderful the way that the Japanese people had obviously found a way to be open about what they expected from people, and I thought that was very good, very courteous. But I thought everything about it was so diligent about the way that you would wipe down your seat on the train after you'd sat there, and the trains were just so immaculate, and people were so kind and so respectful, and the bowing feels so respectful.
Do you think you would you like the English culture to be more Japanese?
I suppose in many ways,
Do you feel like you could assimilate quite well to that?
Oh, well, I don't know. I would like to think so, but I would like to spend a proper amount of time there. I know some people who have lived there and loved it, and my partner actually lived there.
No way.
Because he worked at Tokyo Disney, and he still talks about it. So
Tokyo Disney?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he loved it.
What does he do?
He worked in the parks there, so he
way.
loved it. And he always talks so fondly about it. So really, we should plan a trip to go back and revisit it as he
definitely.
saw it and as I saw it. And I would like to see more of
You
the...
can skip the queues.
No, you can't. It's very strict.
Of course,
he tells
probably
me,
not in Japan,
He tells me
yeah.
it's very strict. Yes, particularly in Japan. But to go to some of the Studio Ghibli places, or Ghibli, it's Studio Ghibli, sorry.
Would be really fun.
Would be really
Yeah.
extraordinary.
And a different side to Japan. as
Yeah,
well,
and to see it with somebody else would be a good thing,
Yeah.
I think. Somebody to talk about it with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be something to go back to.
Chapter 5, Tom, is your hidden gem. So that is a place that you love that maybe my listeners wouldn't know so much about.
Well, I would obviously not want to tell you, but I think that, yes, I was thinking of a few options on this. It goes back to Spain, actually. The city of Alicante. Great city to go to. You can obviously fly straight there. It's kind of 20 minutes, 15 minutes from the airport.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
You've got fabulous restaurants there. My mum and I used to go on a summer trip there every year.
Really?
We'd go to I'm not employed by Melia, but it was a Melia hotel. It was up on the peninsula. And so you have a direct view of the sea. I liked that.
I haven't been to Alicante.
Oh.
So can you help me visualise it?
Yes, it's a port city with a port on one side and a sandy beach on the other. And then there's a bit of a peninsula, a bigger peninsula, and on the other side is San Juan, which is more beaches, which has, I think, a lot of Spanish tourists there.
Is it historic?
A little bit of history there, some castles, some walls,
Castles and walls, yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's a nice kind of mix of a bit of buzz and relaxation,
And manageable.
and very manageable, easy to get to.
Yeah.
And so I like going there to some lovely restaurants they had open there, and like there was a real sort of cool scene. I was really impressed by it.
What were you weighing it up against as your other one?
I would say I was very lucky. I got to do some touring in the Highlands and Islands.
Oh.
And I remember going to Elgin and Banchory, which are really kind of small towns in the north of Scotland. North of Scotland, I think that's fair to say. Someone
I'm thinking of Johnston's of Elgin, which is a clothing brand.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Yeah, it's like a jumper from the Highlands.
Oh, a jumper from the Highlands. All round there, I thought was so lovely. And when I was touring there was in the middle of summer, and it was so warm, and all the locks just looked like just so appealing. So many jellyfish.
Really?
Put me off a bit going in the water, but I still enjoyed being there. It was just tremendous, and the sort of the adventure of finding eateries, little shacks that sold seafood, or out of this beautiful clear water, bakeries, restaurants, everything about it I just thought was so stunning. I know people do know about going to Scotland on holiday. I know a lot of people go. It's very successful as a tourist destination. But going off the beaten track
going right up the top.
Right up the top was really extraordinary.
Yeah.
And then the other end of the spectrum is, I mean, going on tour, I like it when I go to places that aren't touristic, as it were. Mm-hmm. So like places like Wakefield.
Wakefield, I love it.
I mean, it's strange to say perhaps, because people would never think of it, but had just a lovely sense about it. I just really loved it. It's got a cathedral, it's a city. And I remember I ended up doing some filming there because I liked it so much.
Really?
But they have like a couple of local pie shops, and they have lovely restaurants and cafes. And when I was there was a place opposite the town hall where there was a community of people doing screen printing and artwork, and there was some refugees who had moved there, and they had been artists and creatives in their homeland, and they brought that to Wakefield, and they were creating things, and I just thought it was so inspiring. And because Barbara Hepworth had been from Wakefield, and there's the sculpture park and the museum, and and so that stuff I just thought was just exquisite.
Creative.
But, and I thought, you wouldn't necessarily think to go to Wakefield. So there you go. There's another hidden
That is
gem.
a very good.
You can choose. Is it okay to have two? It's a bit lazy, isn't it?
Please.
I haven't
The
chosen.
more the better.
Yeah.
Our very penultimate chapter is chapter 6, and that is either your worst travel experience or the place that you would never go back to.
Well. Last year, my partner and I love to watch Benidorm, the sitcom.
The TV program, yeah.
And it's so silly. And then we thought, we'll go there. And
You went to Benidorm?
yeah, we thought we'll go there. It'll be fun. It looks so fun. We'll go there.
Yeah.
We couldn't find a hotel that would. You had to book 5 nights in a hotel if you went there. And we were like, we don't know if we want to go for 5 nights. Mm-hmm. But we were staying in the local area. So we thought, we'll go there for a day and see how we like it. Maybe we'll stay there or maybe we won't.
Yeah.
And we went, and I just... Maybe we went to the wrong places because people have been there and they like it, and they say the old town is great. You should go to the old town. That's lovely there. I think we just headed for like the most touristy places, and I was like, why is this like this? And it's and I'm a snob. I know I'm a snob. Okay, fine, hate me. And who am I to tell other people how to live their holiday? But I was just like, why is there a sports bar playing PGA golf whilst blasting out rock music, whilst serving like ham, egg and chips to people who can't hear each other, who are not looking out on anything nice. They're looking out on a road with like right onto the bins, while people go past in quad bikes in like 35, 40 degree heat.
Yeah, you're not selling it. No.
And I just felt like, but why? That's so snobby of me, because who am I to say why? Like, people can do whatever they want on their holiday.
But you're entitled to have not enjoyed it.
And I love a rotisserie chicken. Mm. And the way they do a rotisserie chicken in Spain, there's something about it. Rob Beckett says he goes to a place in Calella. Lou Beckett, his wife, goes to a place in Calella.
Calella?
So you must go there for the rotisserie chickens, she said.
Yeah.
And I thought, one day I'll go there. Anyway, the second best place in Spain, it turned out, we found after we left, is a place in the old town of Benidorm. Right by where we'd parked as well.
No.
That does the best rotisserie chicken.
Oh my God, so it might end up being the answer to your next question, which is the destinations at the top of your travel bucket list. Is it to go back to Benidorm for the chicken?
Maybe it's to go back to Benidorm for the rotisserie chicken. Do you know what? Have you ever had chicken in Spain?
I mean, I must have done, but I don't think that I've had it as something that's like etched in my memory. No.
I remember it as a
What,
kid.
Juicy and Herby?
Yeah, Juicy and Herby.
Yeah.
We'd get them. We'd go to the port in Javea, going back to Javea again, and there were rotisserie chicken shops there. And we'd go and get rotisserie chicken and sit in the courtyard garden of the flat and have that. Because we didn't go for the menu del dia we couldn't afford the menu del dia every day, but a rotisserie chicken. Oh, and I just remember loving it, the herbiness of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So is that your bucket list destination, Tom, your final chapter? Or is there somewhere else in the world that you're also dying to visit?
Well, of course, I'd like to go somewhere that is different and exciting and interesting. Like I've always wanted to go to China. I'd like to see the Forbidden City because I love that film, The Last Emperor.
Oh yeah.
Oh, lot of history in that film. Very interesting. Very about the last emperor and how he lived on his own in the Forbidden City, and all the monks who served on him weren't allowed to look at him, and if he came walking past, they all had to crouch on the floor.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating.
Yeah.
I'd like to see where all of that happened.
And it's interesting because it's somewhere that is opening up more to tourism,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
I just watched that Ben Vogel in China on Channel 5.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Very, very interesting.
Oh, I
mean,
bet.
like whole cities and regions that I've
Yes.
never heard of.
Yes,
You know
wouldn't
what I
that be
mean?
fascinating
Is that
to go
so
there?
interesting?
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that, to see all of that. I've always loved China. I've always sort of been fascinated by China.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Is there a place so the Forbidden City you'd like to see?
I think Beijing. I'd like to spend some time in, and see it, and the Great Wall, of course. But for me, the Forbidden City just always seems so much more.
Well, I hope you make it there sometime soon.
I'll let you know as soon as I get there.
Fabulous. Tom Allen, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Those were your travel diaries, and it was so much fun.
I enjoyed that.
Well, a huge thank you to Tom Allen for joining me on the Travel Diaries. What a lovely guy. Really, really enjoyed that one. I hope you did too. His fabulous debut novel, Common Decency, is out now. I'm about halfway through it at the moment. I'm really, really enjoying it. I'll, of course, be back next week with a brand new guest, so don't forget to hit follow or subscribe on your podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. To find out who's joining me next week, come and follow me on Instagram. I'm at Holly Rubenstein. You'll also find me on TikTok at Holly Rubenstein as well. In the meantime, have a fabulous week and safe travels.